guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about one of the OG influencers and a few of the controversies they've been in. This influencer by no means is part of what I call the heavier controversies, like ones to do with grooming or anything of the sort that's actually heavy. Though these are different types of heavy that might affect small businesses, because we're going to be talking about alleged and potential plagiarism, because at the end of the day, it's really up to you to decide what you think is plagiarism or not. I think this is a difficult topic in some ways because artistic plagiarism, like in fashion, which is really what we're going to be talking about, is difficult to pinpoint because in a way everything has been done. But at the same time, we have so much at our fingertips in terms of technology, in terms of creativity, that it also seems like if someone is in controversy after controversy over the same type of problem, like plagiarism, you start wondering, how is it that they couldn't just change things up to make it different enough, but with the same inspiration so that it still works? Does that make sense? It kind of boils down to the same argument of there are plenty of artists that are inspired by other artists, but their art is not identical, though you might be able to see the influence, if that makes sense. Before we get into that, I did want to thank today's sponsor, which is Function of Beauty. As you guys know, I've been using Function of Beauty for quite a long time now, and I continue to because they always deliver. Function of Beauty creates customized shampoo and conditioner based on your needs and goals. I turned to Function of Beauty because I'd tried numerous products that simply weren't working for my hair. So my hair is thin and my scalp needs more moisture in the winter or generally when it's colder. So my hair goals are to revitalize my hair, strengthen my hair, and then moisturize my scalp. I frankly love the results that have come with Function of Beauty because I feel that my hair is stronger, and I also feel like the texture of my hair is better. It's not as frizzy and poofy when it naturally air dries. All you need to do is take a quick quiz and then you'll get your own customized formula. On top of the customized formula, Function of Beauty allows you to choose the fragrance and color of your hair products. So I got black shampoo and lavender conditioner. These are empty, but I got another set in the exact same colors, so I'll show you how they look like when they're full. So this is the shampoo I got, the black one, and this is the conditioner, the lavender one. I also always love the personalized touch of my name on the bottle. To top it all off, Function of Beauty uses clean ingredients, so no parabens, sulfates, GMOs, or toxins. It's also 100% vegan and cruelty-free. Get 20% off your first set when you click the link in my description. Thank you to Function of Beauty for sponsoring this video. So the influencer we're gonna be talking about today is We Wore What. If you guys were on Instagram in the earlier days, or the earlier days rather, where blogs were really thriving as opposed to now where there are a lot of other platforms where people are thriving, there were a couple of main fashion girls, I'd call them, that people followed, and We Wore What was one of them. Now, that's no shade in any way, but it's just like back in the early days of Instagram, there were a couple things that stood out in my mind, which is the horrible editing we did back then, RIP. But aside from that, there were a few main big figures because they were bloggers, and like I said, at the time, that was really what people subscribed to because, like I said, there weren't many other platforms. So a quick intro to We Wore What. If you don't know who she is, her name's Danielle Bernstein, and from her own website, she is the founder, designer, CEO, author, and investor. So she's the founder and face beyond the world-renowned fashion blog at We Wore What, over 2 million followers. A native New Yorker, Bernstein started her career 10 years ago, leading the influencer industry into what it is today. And she was placed on Forbes 30 Under 30 list before the age of 25, and since then has invested in many new business ventures, including her own line of swim and overalls. So she really was one of the key people that I think kind of were an influencer before an influencer was like a coveted and rather normal job, in the sense of now influencers are a common thing, but back then, like 10 years ago when I was like 17, it wasn't as common, barely existed if I recall correctly. There was an article that I looked up because I remembered reading that Bernstein had been in a number of scandals. So I think within 2020 to now, she's at least been in 10 different scandals that involve plagiarism in some way or being too heavily inspired to the point where things look near identical. In the article at hand, which I will link below, there were 11 examples. I could not possibly go through all of those examples or else we'd be here for an hour. I picked the ones that I think are most convincing, the ones that I think actually, you know, have some merit to them, because some of the scandals, a couple that weren't plagiarism, I think were a little bit silly or a little bit overblown for what they were. An example was that she had posted something, I think on Instagram. I don't know if it was a video because I think it was removed, but she had posted something along the lines of how to hide your cellulite in the sun. And some people had drawn the conclusion that that meant that cellulite is bad. Whereas in the caption, she'd said, love yourself or both are okay. She was just showing what she wanted to do. And while I don't think it's healthy to demonize these things, I also don't think it's healthy to try and police what other people do with their own bodies. So if she wanted to cover it, fine. The important thing is that the message isn't, hide this, this is terrible, this isn't normal. It's a different thing to say, hey, this is completely normal, I like to hide it for my own comfort, whatever, and then do whatever you need. But it all really comes down to the delivery of the message at hand, so I just didn't think that was one of the most important scandals. This is one of the biggest scandals I remember her for because I remember it made quite a few waves when it had come out. So in July 2020, Bernstein was called out for saying she was going to remake a pair of quote-unquote vintage gym shorts that were actually from an Australian Etsy shop. Basically, she'd said that she'd posted this picture with these shorts that you'll see on screen, and because they were in such high demand, she said that she was going to remake them herself. So then Diet Prada, which if you don't know is an Instagram that I follow closely that comments on fashion and fashion plagiarism. It's really, really interesting to look at because they do side-by-sides, and it's just really interesting how you can see brands copying each other all the time. It's actually unfortunate. Diet Prada shared an Instagram post claiming that the shorts were actually designed by an Australian Etsy shop called Art Garments. The shop owner, Grace Corby, told Diet Prada that she found out about Bernstein's post after fans started tagging her shop in the influencer's post. According to Corby, she then realized Bernstein bought 2 pairs of Art Garments in November 2019. Eventually, We Wore What, where Bernstein changed her caption and said that she thought they were vintage, but she'd gotten them from Etsy. So this seems like a small blunder, and I agree with that, but the thing is, if this is a repetitive happening, so a pattern, it becomes harder and harder to believe that someone would just be accused of plagiarism and very similar designs, if not identical, over 11 times, and this is only since like 2020. This isn't like overall the 10 years of her career, which I think is why a lot of people are more convinced by it, because it seems to defy the laws of probability that it would happen over and over and over, unless people have some massive hate boner for her, which I don't really think they do as far as I've seen. They might not like her, maybe, I don't know. So this is another one that got a lot of publicity, which happened in July of 2020. Bernstein faced backlash again for allegedly copying a mask design from a small Latina-owned business. So basically there was a mask design, as you can see on the screen, with the chain, and the one Bernstein was promoting looked exactly the same in a different color, but the design looked identical to me aside from that. So again, Diet Prada discussed this, and they said that Bernstein reached out to Second Wind, the brand at hand, and its creator Karen Perez on Instagram and asked for samples on June 29th and then again on July 2nd to say she was also releasing masks with detachable chains. After Bernstein showed off her mask designs on Instagram, people were quick to point out the similarities. Perez told Refinery29 the whole situation almost led her to quit her business. In a statement said to Insider this week, she said, "How many times do we see high-end designers get knocked off by fast fashion brands? I was never aware that it would happen to me so quickly." This was then picked up by a lot of online news sources, which I think put pressure on Bernstein, and she shared a message on her Instagram saying accusations were false and that she would be donating her masks plus an additional 5,000 surgical masks to healthcare workers. And then she also deleted the post of the chained face mask from Instagram. Now, it's possible that this was a coincidence, an unfortunate coincidence, I guess. But to me, the outcome is still positive because she did donate the masks and then the 5,000 surgical masks. So no matter what, it came out to like a good resolution, I suppose. But again, it's a little strange to me that she would ask for samples and then say, oh yeah, I'm gonna do the same thing. I think that's a little weird. It would be like asking a competitor, hey, I like your shoes, by the way, I'm gonna compete with you. It's a bit weird to me. I don't know if that is a norm. If you work in the fashion industry, please let me know if that is a norm. That doesn't seem particularly favorable for Bernstein. So this is another one, and I think this one is a lot more complicated to me in certain ways because I feel like I've seen these types of designs relatively often. So in October 2020, Bernstein sued a Brooklyn-based lingerie brand, the Grey Eros, after the brand accused her of copying the design of its signature packaging. So as you can see in the picture, the similarities are there. The right, it's the tissue paper pattern used at the Grey Eros store, And then on the left, we have Bernstein's. I think it's complicated because lined figures like this have become pretty popular over the past couple of years. They've been popular prior, but especially on tissue paper, wallpaper, gift wrap. Like I've seen it a lot on those types of stationery, let's say. So it's hard to say, oh yeah, this is identical, but at the same time, it's similar enough where it's like there could have been at least things to be changed if you were heavily inspired by this. So Bernstein actually filed the lawsuit against the Grey Eros after the brand claimed she copied the design of its signature tissue paper. And in her lawsuit, Bernstein said that she was never gifted or purchased anything from the brand. The lawsuit also said an internal investigation showed her designers weren't familiar with the brand. I mean, I don't know how an investigation could show that, because couldn't the designers just lie and say they weren't familiar with it? I mean, I don't know how that conclusively shows anything. And aside from that, even if they weren't gifted anything, plagiarism happens all the time, just digitally. Just like someone sees your work, they trace it, they copy it, whatever. That's not that difficult. It happens all the time with tattoo artists. And it says, what everybody's trying to say here is there are repercussions for these actions. You can't act like that without consequences, Jeff Gluck said, a lawyer for the Grey Eros. And then Bernstein wrote, I want to clarify that I'm absolutely not seeking financial gain. What we're doing is simply asking the courts to confirm that we did not infringe on an alleged copyright. And then Bernstein also said that the pattern was inspired by Matisse's line drawings, while generally ubiquitous concepts such as silhouettes of the human form are not exclusive to any one individual or company. I low-key think the quote here was funny because generally ubiquitous concepts such as silhouettes of the human form, I mean, I don't know if that's under a lawyer's advisement, but that's incredibly vague because the human form has been done over and over in many ways, which is true, but you can't deny that these have a very eye-catching similarity. Like if I had to look back on them again and someone asked me which brand is on the left, which brand is on the right, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're different enough that I would say, oh yeah, this is clearly so-and-so. And I think that is part of the problem, that it's not necessarily, oh, one detail is different, but it's more like if something looks similar enough where you'd confuse them, there might be an issue there, especially for a smaller brand compared to Bernstein, which has millions of followers. And then basically the Grey Eros said that they won't cower to this and they will have their day in court, period. Apparently Miss Bernstein wants to continue gaslighting people into believing she's trying to resolve this in a fair way. People are smarter than that and they see what she's doing. And then the Grey Eros filed its own lawsuits against Bernstein, and we were alleging she and her label copied the pattern of female nudes on Eros's tissue paper and sold merchandise with a stolen design. So in the end, the Grey Eros was granted successful registration of their design with the US Copyright Service. So the last one we're going to discuss is a few other apparent happenings where she asked to quote unquote copy, not really, but emulate other companies' designs, which I want to underline. This happens often. If you follow Diet Prada, you'll see it happens quite often. The thing is, I think there's a distinction to be made when it's Dolce & Gabbana who's copying Gucci, Gucci copying Fendi, whatever. That to me is not the same as a giant taking from an indie brand or someone with a significant amount of power taking from an indie brand, mainly because Gucci, Fendi, whatever, whoever, they can afford the lawyers, they can battle that out in court. An indie brand might not have the time or the money to get a lawyer, so there's no fair adversary there. And that's what is frustrating because those bigger brands can battle it out. Some people just can't, and then they have essentially their livelihoods potentially taken away from them, or they even get hated online, if not both. So I really think it's important to underline it's not exactly the same, though the morality behind it pretty much is, in my opinion. In January, an insider investigation uncovered 3 new allegations of copying against Bernstein. A designer for swimwear brand Onya told insiders Rachel Premick that in 2019, Bernstein brought in a piece of Dolce & Gabbana's fabric and wanted them to work on something similar. 2 former Onya employees said that Bernstein brought in a cotton top for RUMI, a line by an influencer and designer Rumi Neely, another one of the OGs, and asked them to emulate it as a swim top. In 2020, the founders of the small activewear brand Live the Process said they sent Bernstein a set of long-sleeved collared ribbed knit tops and matching shorts at her request. Co-founder Jared Veer told Insider that it seemed Bernstein not only copied the company's shirt, but also its signature minimalist photography style. The accusations that are being described by Business Insider, detailing interviews that former or current Onya employees allegedly gave, are categorically false. a spokesperson for Bernstein said in a statement. The article, designed to paint Anya and Danielle Bernstein in an abhorrent way, is anti-ethical to what Anya and We Were What stand for. For this last piece in particular, I don't think we can say that all of these mean that she ripped off Dolce & Gabbana, that she ripped off RUMI, but rather these are 4 examples out of 11 which are only within the past year pretty much. So that in and of itself to me says something, because it's hard for me to believe, like I said before, that these accusations of plagiarism would just come out of nowhere from so many different brands that aren't even connected to each other, especially considering that she had requested samples from these brands, which I think is what makes her look potentially worse. Realistically, it's difficult for me to believe that all of these are bullshit or all of these are really smear campaigns or based on nothing. Especially the ones we saw, I found were pretty convincing that there was something up. And even if inspiration was taken, which granted it very well may be, but at the same time, the whole point of art, whether it's on canvas or on clothing, whatever, is that you take inspiration to make your own thing as opposed to taking inspiration to basically do the same thing but slightly different, because I don't really think that counts, because I think even if something isn't exactly identical, it still is basically a copy. If people can't look at it and know it's yours, or can't look at it and tell a big difference between 2 pieces, to me, it's pretty much a copy. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and let's get right into the fan art.